Okay, fly we're tying here is called a none of your business. Great name for a fly.
Fish. And I didn't switch flies from last night, kept the same fly on. It's a none of your business. And that's a black fly with some crystal flash in it. It's just doing great. It's doing a great job. It really is. And it's important in this cold water, you know, let them, oh, it came loose again. Damn. You know what? It's a frustrating game sometimes, but that is salmon fishing. That is. There's more out there. Why don't I show this fly to you? That's it. That's your that's the none of your business. Red butt, a little bit of bear as a wing, and then that silver or that flashaboo. That flash is perfect.
Neat little wet fly, and fairly simple to tie. Kind of a new age salmon fly, if you ask me. I'm going to be tying it on a size 8 Arex hook. And get that. Well, almost forgot. We're in Newfoundland. That barb has gotta be pinched. Barbless hooks are the law. Thread, just a nice. This is a very thin diameter. I don't need a lot. I'm not going to be tying with a lot of pressure. So this is a, believe it or not, a 10/0 tying thread, and very thin, but very, very strong. At the same time, just get that thread started on the hook shank. Now the tail of the fly is crystal flash, pearl crystal flash. One of the things I found, you can keep it in the packet like this. It's nice to have the label and everything, but I started using these straws are actually for boba tea or bubble tea, and they just do a remarkable job. You can get them online for next to nothing for 100 of them, and you can just pull out a few strands, 3 or 4 strands at a time, snip them off, push it back in, ready to go. Keeps everything nice and neat. And with many flies, I don't want to over flash it here. I've only got 3 strands, and I'm going to use these for the wing, the tail, and I'm going to double them over for the throat anyway. So just snip the ends off square. Get them started there on the hook shank, and I'm going to pull up and toward me. Keeps them anchored on the top of the fly rather than getting pushed over to the far side. I'm going to stop at about my hook point. On this particular hook, that's where the bend starts. And just to save materials, I'm using some plunger style hackle pliers. I get hold of it right there. I'm going to snip to make just a short tail, only about a hook gap in length. But that way I get to keep that stuff. I can use it for the wing. I can use it for the throat of the fly. Take one more wrap, just trying to pin those guys together. And so I do like to tie in materials kind of in the opposite order of what they get tied in. So I'm going to tie in this flash. This is going to be, it's pearl mylar tinsel. And actually it's called Mirage tinsel, and this will be the last thing that's wrapped on the body. So I'm going to tie it in first. Just get that going. I'm going to tie it right to the near side of the hook. That's fine. Then return my tying thread all the way back up to where the hook eye return comes back. These little hair clips from the drugstore work really well at holding materials back and out of the way. So underbody of the fly anyway is just black yarn, black wool yarn. I'm going to take about, better be on the safe side, take 3 card widths. I'm sure I can get away with less, but just use that bitter end right there, get that thing connected. go all the way back to the base of the tail, and I'm going to wrap forward, my tying thread back up there. Just touching to slightly overlapping wraps with the wool yarn. Try to keep everything nice and even for that body. Again, I don't want to get too far up to the hook eye. You always leave room up there. We got a wing, an underwing, and a throat to get tied in. So we're going to need some space there. I'm just going to take this pearl tinsel. See if I can get it started there. Usually that first wrap is the toughest. Open spiral wraps, 4 or 5 usually looks pretty good going up the shank. You get to my tying thread and use it to anchor that. Always a good idea when you're tying. Let's go over and check that far side, just to make sure everything's looking good. So I'm going to go back to this, and I'm going to add maybe one more strand of the crystal flash here, just to, 3's not looking like enough. Same thing, just keep everything collected. Snip them off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to end up wasting just a little bit of material here, but this is going to be, I'm going to do my underwing and my throat kind of in the same, at the same time, just to save a little bit of time tying. Leave both of them long for a bit. Pull 2 strands down on either side for the throat, and just take thread wraps to pin them back. Now I want to go for the throat. I don't want it to be too far back. Don't want it to go all the way back to the hook point. So I'm going to cut it off at about halfway between the shank and the hook point. I'll do the same thing as I did before, just to conserve crystal flash. I'm going to bring this back and snip it off so it's about halfway down the tail. And that will be the underwing of the fly. All right. So, wing of the fly. You can use a lot of things. You can use moose body hair, which I think here in Newfoundland would be the traditional thing to use. You could use black bear if you wanted to. Here I'm using black squirrel. Only problem with black squirrel is it's very, very slippery, and you don't want much of it. Just going to clean out the under fur. I am going to give this just a little stacking. Those tips align just a little bit better. Now, because this stuff is so slippery, I'm really going to give my thread a good waxing here. This is tying wax, this is not dubbing wax, and it just adds grip to the thread that you otherwise don't get. Take a wrap or two just to make sure that I've got wax there. I'm going to make a short little wing here. Now I do wing these flies a little different than most people. I've got my length. I'm going to use my tying scissors and snip the hair off at an angle. Kind of weird, you know? But I want to make sure that when I put this down on there, that I get both the short and the long end of the butts when I do it. Just a nice little wing on there. And I don't know whether you can see it, but that wax really helps to grip that hair. Comes right to about the back edge of the hook bend. Do a real quick back to front whip finish. Seat the knot well, and then cut my tying thread free. Now you may see a little wax on there from that thread wax, but when you put head cement on top of it, it just disappears. I do like to leave just a little space, kind of traditional, little space behind the eye, originally used for a turtle knot or a hitch, behind the hook eye, about like that. And that is none of your business fly. Neat little pattern, fairly easy to tie, not a lot of materials, and works really, really well for Atlantic salmon, sea run trout. Neat fly.